Hi, I'm Sarah Stockham, and welcome to Simply Sarah. I am delighted that you are here, that you are watching, that you're listening in, that you are present for this conversation. I am so grateful for Grace Sanchez, who's been somebody who was on another episode, for her introducing me to our guest today. Marie Russo is somebody who has just such talent, has such a heart for people, has such a knowledge, and I'm just so grateful that you have carved out time on your vacation week to be here with us in order for us to be able to share your wisdom about what it looks like to be a leader, what it looks like to be an entrepreneur, what it looks like to be impacting lives for good. Marie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so honored and privileged to be here.
Oh, this is good. You are somebody who is impacting so many different lives. Did you grow up in a house that encouraged that? Or is this something that was developed later on in your life?
That's a great question. I think it's a blend, actually, of both. My family, a very, very tight-knit family, we were sort of that neighborhood house. My mom was fortunate enough that she was able to stay home. So she was always involved in our school activities, and she was a room mother. And back in the 60s, we had what was called a block parent. So we had a sign in the window that said block parent. And if you were a child that needed something, or maybe your parents worked and you needed food or whatever before they got home, you could come to our house. So I look back on that now with such gratitude, because my mom and dad were the type that even if the kids weren't home, you could go there and hang out with them. And I had girlfriends that did that when I was like on a date or something, right?
Right.
So I have a very dear friend who I think she was in trouble more than any of the 4 children in the house that were my parents' biological children, because she was there so much and always she was very mischievous. And so I think that was part of it. And then the other part of it, I think, was really something that, God instilled in me, because at a very young age, I can recall wanting to get involved in things where I would show up and do volunteer work. And it became a little bit of a joke in our family. My dad would say, "Who are you saving this week?" Because I didn't necessarily understand that that was going to be a path that I would follow. But looking back now, I know that it was this innate sense of servant leadership that I believe was instilled in me by our Creator, and it just helped me to follow that path, even when I didn't understand I was following that path.
Oh, that's so good. The ancients talk about putting blinders on so that what we see in front of us is what we're supposed to work on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love that concept of that, of just being hedged in, that, just keep going this direction. Maybe you don't understand, but I think that at some point things are going to open up so that you do understand, right? And so that space of being available and having that open heart. I love that your house was the block house. Mm-hmm. How did that impact you and your friendships growing up?
Well, I'm still very close to a lot of the friends that I grew up with. In fact, I was in our neighborhood yesterday helping out one of my dear friends' mom with, we were setting up her little call system in the house, because my friend doesn't live locally anymore. So I drove through the old neighborhood and I had such mixed emotions. My parents have both passed. A lot of the parents have passed, but I haven't moved that far away from where I grew up. So I still see childhood friends. I'm still in touch with them through social media, some very close personally still. And it's just lovely, because I knew their parents, and we talk about our parents, and we talk about our teachers in grade school. And so it gives me such a sense of peace to know that, I started to forge these relationships. And even though some have gone, we've grown apart, there is still such a sense of community. And I believe that is because of the community where I grew up and the parents that we all grew up with. And we were just so blessed and fortunate. And let's face it, the 60s and the 70s were simpler times, and we were not faced with a lot of the challenges that, the younger generation is faced with. We were not engaged in any kind of social media. So we had to actually communicate and go out and ride our bikes and be creative and inventive and pretend we were on big camping trips or whatever. And we were in the parking lot of the Vaughn's grocery market. Right?
Yes.
So generationally, I think things were quite different then as well, obviously. So I think that all sort of played a part in growing up in a very not necessarily sheltered environment, but a much more a simpler environment, a kind of simpler time, maybe a more controlled environment, but not in a bad way.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And Marie, you talked about community. And if somebody has changed jobs, they have moved away, they have found that the community that they once knew is no longer around them, and they are desiring that. How would you encourage them to find community?
So I would say that it is important to get involved. Now, for some, that is a great challenge. They are not like me that is going to go to a cocktail party and by the end of the night know every single person in that room.
Yes.
So we have to find ways, and that is the one thing that I feel very blessed through my practice, is to help others find the way that they can do that in their own manner and being authentic to who they are and maybe getting out of their comfort zone a little bit, but not so that there is this is a list of 5 things you have to do. For some, it could be church community. They find their new church home, and that brings with it, obviously, a great opportunity to build community very quickly. For others, it could be a meetup group. They're a runner. They like to go hiking. They like to go camping, right? They like to go dancing, whatever it may be. So I think it's important for you to understand yourself and understand what speaks to you in the way of opportunity. And maybe you might need a little tiny push to get out there and kind of make things happen for yourself. And we know that if we sit in our house, chances are, unless you forge a relationship with the Amazon person that's dropping off your packages every day, right? It's going to be a little bit more challenging than if you at least get out into the community and see what's out there. It's a great adventure.
It is a great adventure. And Marie, I so appreciate that you were able to say that at the end of the cocktail party, you've met every single person in the room.
Whether they like it or not, Sarah.
Yes. And that you also acknowledge and train and help people who are like, ooh, this is the hardest thing in my day to have to do, is to go into a room that I don't know the people, into a place I don't know, and that you honor that as well. That as you work with people, that's part of how you help people to look at the possibilities and to look at taking one step forward, not having to take 45 steps forward in the next 2 minutes.
Correct.
And I admire that about how you train and how you help people. What is your framework that you use as you are coaching people?
Well, the foundation of my entire coaching practice is the Gallup-Clifton Strengths assessment.
Mhm.
So I am a certified strengths coach through the Gallup organization. Although I don't work for Gallup, I am trained through Gallup, and that is the assessment that I use.
Mhm.
The reason I use that assessment and have in the almost 2 decades since I began my private practice is because it really helps us to identify our innate talents,
Mhm.
work with the coach to figure out ways to help grow those and really strengthen them,
Mhm.
and then actually aim them so that we are using them to the greater good for ourselves, for the world, for our community, to our families,
Mhm.
uh, with our work. It really touches every part of our lives.
Mhm.
So even though I may be working with the board of directors with a company,
Yes.
they will be able to take this assessment and the results and the work that we've done, and it will empower them in every facet of their life.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to take home with them and show up differently in their
Absolutely.
conversations as a result of taking that test and working with you and finding out not only what their strengths are, but how to strengthen those strengths, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I was looking at a tree over my lunch period, and I thought, oh, that's the tallest tree in this whole area of trees. But it also looked like it has really brown leaves way too early in the season for it to have brown leaves. And I just wonder if it hasn't been nourished like it could be, right?
Mm,
So it's a
right,
tree, it knows how to grow, it's this beautiful being. And then comes the nurturing part of it. And
right.
also today we have these small persimmons. They're an East Coast persimmon that we absolutely love. And the tree is dropping them and they're not ready, they're not ripe. So again,
Mhm.
what is it that we need to be doing to nurture these trees, perhaps this year, but for sure for next year, to have a beautiful crop of fruit? Is that idea that we are also beings that need to be encouraged and nurtured, even if we have strengths that we know already, that we have affirmed already, to still come into that place of being open to learn and to be open to um, nourishing those.
Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of being in the present. But that being said, I think it is vital that we are critical. I mean, we can't be so myopic that we're just being so present that we don't have one foot in the future,
Yes.
so that we're planning for the future.
Yes.
We are really, really setting out that path and maybe kicking aside some of the little leaves and some of the different things that we are pruning so that we will be able to step into our best year ever, our best week ever, our best day, our best moment, right?
Yes.
So, yes, absolutely.
Oh, Marie, I love this concept of pruning things. I
Yes.
was talking with another television host today a little bit earlier, and I was just saying, when can I interview you? And we were talking about dates, and she looked at me and says, "This is how you plan out your recordings time." And I said, yes, I'm finally getting to this place that I can open up my calendar and say, these are the blocks that work best, right? So I'm pruning out all these other things that have taken, starting and stopping, right? And
Right.
getting to that place that I think his name was Alex Trebek, that he would come in, he would fly in and do a full season full of his show and then
Right.
be able to do other things the rest of the year. And that I won't necessarily be there at some point, but I'm definitely pruning the things that I'm starting and stopping so that I can come into a place of more fullness, a place of looking at my calendar and saying, yes, that's what fits for this season.
Absolutely. I think having that vision, to your point, Sarah, is really a craft in itself,
Yeah.
right? A talent in itself. It's something I don't possess right now. I have a fleeting moment of it,
Mhm.
but then I'm right back into what I'm doing.
Yes.
And so it's a bit of a challenge for me.
Mhm.
And the other great thing about being a coach is I learned so much from my clients. I've learned so much from you. I always say, gosh, I think sometimes I learn more from them than they could ever possibly learn from me. So I borrow things, I steal things. I say, do you mind if I steal that? Um, it's really been such a fascinating journey because as a coach, one of the first things that we are taught is to be an active listener and not to hijack someone's agenda.
Mm.
And for a big talker like me, that was really cringy and difficult. And it took me a good deal of time to just, I call it the holy pause.
Oh, I like that, Marie. Yes.
Absolutely. To just wait
Yes.
on it,
Yes.
let it settle,
Uh-huh.
respond when I really had something that was going to add value. So that was a huge challenge for me as a young coach 20 years ago. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm much better at it.
Yes. And I love the word that you use, that holy part of holy pause, because holy means that it's set apart, it's different, right?
Absolutely.
So that the dishes that we use only for certain events in that context could be considered holy. Yes. And so that whole idea of setting apart, making this time be different, that the listening that I'm going to be doing is going to be different than what I would just be in a conversation with somebody talking about groceries or what movie we're going to see, right? Yeah. And so choosing to just shift a little bit inside of that space. I think that's such deep wisdom right there with that. We're going to take a short break. We will be right back to continue this conversation with Marie. We at Simply Sarah absolutely love Hudson Naturals. In fact, it just got a shipment in, and this one is orange and lemongrass. It has incredible shea butter in there and also coconut oil. But the smell, I put some on and I had somebody say, where did you get that? And we began using Hudson Naturals way before we began having conversations with them about supporting what we are doing here at Simply Sarah. The other people I like to highlight today is going to be the Glass Arts Collective. And Glass Arts Collective is a place outside of Los Angeles that if you are interested in creating, you're interested in playing with what it could look like to create something in glass, you can absolutely reach out to them and book time. The thing that I really appreciate about them right now is that as we are looking for gifts to be able to share with other people, it's one of the first places that we go to look because Glass Arts Collective has such a unique collection of items from multiple different artists that are available for sale right now. I invite you to look at glassartscollective.com. In this conversation with Marie, we are talking about so many different pieces of things. She is a coach. She is somebody that I met through a nonprofit who has been diligently sharing on and loving and encouraging kiddos to look at the gifts that they have and how they can expand those. And so, Marie, as I think about your work with nonprofits, how is it that you come in and teach? What is it that you do that you change so many lives so quickly? I know that you speak at events. I know that you coach, that you work with boards of directors, that you talk to specific different groups inside of the nonprofits and what they are working on. How do you prepare to go and speak to a group where you know that you might be one of the first 3 people that they have ever listened to who is saying, you have gifts and you have opportunities?
Well, I think, Sarah, it is such a humbling experience for me personally as a coach. I absolutely am gripped by people. I am gripped by their stories, by their lives. And I think that shows through. So I think there is definitely an authenticity um, that people can feel when they're working with me. I think my energy is such that they realize that I'm kind of kooky and kind of zany, but that there is real purpose behind my passion and behind my passion for people and their gifts. So I try to incorporate as much of uh, the audience as possible. I say what I need to say to get my point across. But I feel that when they feel comfortable sharing and leaning into one another and understanding the concept of not only understanding their own gifts, but learning about each other on a deeper level and learning to lean in where I am weak, you are strong. So, how do I celebrate your gift? How can we celebrate my gift? I think it is looking at, again, the word community.
Yes.
Very few of us can go out and live off the grid alone. We need one another. So I think that really comes across in my coaching, because when I leave having known that everyone feels a little bit closer to one another, that's cause for celebration for me as
Yeah.
a coach. And I know that they can then take the process and flourish and go with it and continue to grow. And it's kind of, my dad had a beautiful rose garden, and he used to say they're like my little babies. I like to see them grow and nourish them, and as you said, really, really, taking care of them. And that's kind of how I feel. It's like my little babies going off into the world, right? Just having a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more grace for themselves and for others, and empowering them to be the best version of themselves. And I will say this, Sarah, and I truly mean this. I say it so often. I don't know exactly how it works, which probably sounds really bad for me to say that as the coach, but I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I know it works.
Yes.
And I don't know that I need to know exactly how it works or that I'm meant to know how it works, but I know that it does work and I see it. And yes, I facilitate the process, but the clients do the work.
Yes.
And that's what the difference is.
One of the things that captivated me about you, Marie, is in your words that you may be quirky or zany. There is this openness that is just so authentic that you are trustworthy. And so maybe the bubbly part of it is but it brings people in. It causes people to stop, right? And for them to say, oh, there's something about this person. And then as people get to know you, it's just so easy to open up and have deep conversations about things that are going on, just because who you are is who you are. There isn't a facade of this is who I am on stage and this is who I am after I've finished being on stage. Right. And I love that you are so congruent, so authentic all the way through. So thank you so much for that, Marie.
Thank you, Sarah. That's the highest compliment you could pay me. It's a little exhausting for people sometimes, and I get that because it's exhausting for me sometimes, but it is who I am. So
So beautiful. If somebody were thinking about having a day job and then also opening up a coaching practice,
Mhm.
what would be some advice that you would give to them about honoring their day job while they're there and then honoring the coaching part as they're building it?
I think that I am a lifelong learner.
Mm.
So if it had not been coaching, coupled with my corporate position at the time, I would have been learning something else.
Yes.
So if somebody does decide to take on this journey, it is so enriching. Whether you do it as a part time career, as maybe the crossover career into retirement, or you're looking at options to change,
Mhm.
your career, it will absolutely uh, enrich your life, whether you do anything with it or not. It is enriching. It helps you to become a better listener, a better leader, I think it's helped me become better in so many ways and has really given me almost the permission
Mm.
to live my truth within my circumstance. And that's yeah,
Yeah.
that's my mantra, right? Live your truth within your circumstance. So
Yes.
you may be trapped. You may feel you're trapped in a job or a relationship or whatever it might be. But I think if you take on any kind of coaching or mentoring,
Mhm.
you will learn to live your truth within whatever that circumstance is. And the circumstance will then be much more of a gift to your life than potentially a grievance. And not to say everybody has that,
Right.
but some do.
Yes. What I so appreciate you saying is that in the learning is this opportunity to grow and develop. And then you get to decide if you're going to do anything with it or not. And I know that I was reaching out to work with the coach, and I said, I really do think I want to go through certification, but I can't think about that right now
Mhm.
because she would teach them together. I said, I need to do this for me. I need to learn this for me.
Right.
And then we'll have conversations about certification because this time is my investment into myself and my own learning and discovering more about who I am and how I act or don't act under stress and what I do or don't do when I'm triggered, right? And
Right.
I just needed for that to be so very clear in my world. And so I really appreciate what you are saying because that gives the person then the opportunity to decide afterwards, is this something that you really want to pursue with sharing with other people? Or is this knowledge that you're really going to continue to work on with yourself
Right.
and decide what you want to do with it later on? Because there isn't an expiration date on learning.
Well, that depends on who you speak with. As you know, Sarah, I'm in school once again, and
Yes.
I'm working on my degree in theology.
Yes.
And I've had a couple of very interesting comments about that, including a family member who said, "Aren't you a little old to be going to
Oh,
school?" And I said, "First of all, that was really rude. And secondly, no, I'm not. Um, I may be 90 by the time I get my doctorate, but if I'm still going to school then and do the
yes.
work, maybe that
Yes.
could happen, right?"
Right.
So for me, the reason I go to school and I continue to learn on that pathway, as opposed to some people learn through um, uh, podcasts, or some people learn through YouTube. And
Yeah.
for me, I actually like the educational piece and actually the school piece and going into, again, community for me. Uh, I don't need to know the end game.
Mm.
I need to be on the journey. And
Ah,
that's what coaching has helped me discover.
yes.
that I'm a lifelong learner and this is how it shows up in my life. And regardless of how much money I've spent in my adult life going back to school, or how many hours I have committed, or whether I've used those degrees or those certifications,
Yes.
for me, that doesn't matter. For me, the journey is what matters in my life. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And I think there's also this piece. I mean, obviously, when we moved here about a year ago, that there were different things that we didn't understand how to do. And so we would go to like a YouTube and put in specific words about how do we fix this X, whatever it happens to be. And YouTube can be phenomenal for that. But if you are looking for a logical, sequential curriculum that's been developed, I agree with you that working with somebody who has that, because it will unfold itself in a very different way than I'll just listen and get a little information in here and then listen over here and get a little information. And absolutely, we learn that way. But there is something to be said about I'm dedicating time to learn this specific thing in the way that it's laid out. And then if I want to change the way it's laid out later on, go for it, right? If I want to reconfigure it and put my own spin on it, okay, that works. But to decide what it is that you want to learn and how you want to learn it, I think is a really important differentiation there. When you work with people, Marie, do you find that people come to you because they know that they want to work on something and get results faster? Or do they come because they are just looking to find out more about themselves and don't really care about how fast they get results?
I think most people hire me as a coach to get results quickly, or they're not quite sure how to get the results that
Yes.
they are hoping to achieve.
Yes.
I am a holistic health practitioner as well as part of my practice. That is the toughest part of my practice, which I do not engage in as regularly, because with health, somebody says, I want to lose 60 pounds, but they didn't gain it in a week, but they can't understand why they're not losing it in a week. So that's much more challenging. But so I think that there's this, maybe some blockages of how to get to the place they need to get to. They're not certain of the pathway. But I think generally most people want to see results pretty quickly, pretty early on in the coaching practice, or the coaching space rather, because otherwise it doesn't hold value for them. Yes. So that's the tricky part, the very, very beginning parts, if a person has not worked with a coach before.
Yes. And I think also for those of us who are working with coaches or working with mentors, I know I'm working with a business coach right now, that space of grace for ourselves. That, yes, this is what I'm working on and this is what I am invested into, but also recognizing that I'm doing A, B, and C, and maybe I'm going to get D immediately, and maybe D is going to come a little bit, there's going to be perhaps a little bit of a time delay as other pieces work together, and to not be overly constricted in our energy when we don't see the results that we want as quickly as we want to get them. However, I will say absolutely, I believe that working with a coach will get you, if you have done your research and you have found somebody who's like Marie, who is congruent all the time, right? That you will get the results that you are looking for much faster than if you were to just try to figure it out on your own.
Right. I believe, Sarah, the other thing that works for me in my practice is the accountability piece is huge, right? But the other part of it is I allow my clients to be a part of the planning for each session.
Yes.
So I really want them to know that when they leave that session, the things that have been on their mind
Mhm.
and that have been things they've been thinking about since our last session, that those are things that we address.
Definitely.
So it becomes, it's their journey.
Right.
They get to take this wonderful journey and I get to go along in their suitcase, right?
Right. Yes.
That's how I feel about my practice. So I always want to make sure that they're being heard,
Mm.
and the things that are on their heart and on their mind, those are things that are being addressed in their session.
Yes. So starting the session with a holy pause, an opportunity
Mhm.
for them to be able to speak and to ask or clarify or work on, knowing that you have the agenda that
Yeah.
you can craft into that particular time or begin to morph it into the next time as well, that you are flexible inside of that. That's such a beautiful, beautiful way of working.
Yes.
Marie, if this is kind of a question that I don't ask very often, but if you were to have a conversation with anybody,
Mhm.
somebody who has transitioned, who's no longer with us in the physical realm, any time period at all, who would that person be? And what would you want to have the conversation with them about?
Wow. That is, that's a huge question. For me, not that I don't converse with this
Mhm.
person regularly, but I mean, I would love to speak with my parents, my brother who's passed on. There are so many people in my life, but I think it would it would be Jesus,
Mhm.
um, because part of the process that I've been going through in my theology studies, I mean, I wrote a poem. We had to do something very creative, and that's about as creative as I get, Sarah. I wrote a poem about how I would have reacted
Mm.
had I walked the earth with
Mhm.
Jesus. Would I have been one of his followers? Would
Right.
I have thought he was, you know, a charlatan? Or I question that. I think, well, gosh, I believe my belief and my faith is so strong now that clearly it would have been so strong then. But would it have? So I think that those are the kinds of things I would have questioned.
Mm.
I used to always say, I'm going to have a lot of questions if I get to heaven one day. And then I'm pretty sure I'll be asked the questions, if you know what I mean. So I think that would be it, because that really kind of troubles me to wonder about that. Would I have believed? Would I have really believed in a person and I'm following them and I'm just living off the land basically and wandering around and yes, seeing miracles, but could that have been witchcraft? Could that have been right? I mean, all these things go through my brain. So um I guess that would be something that would really, really be in, just life changing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Friend, I happen to know that you have been going through a space in your life where you have decided that you want to update and renew some pieces of your house. And this has not been a weekend project. This has been something that has had its own life. And I think that you have some wisdom to share with people who are trying to redo their office, whether it happens to be at a workplace or at home, or that they have decided at work that they are for sure putting everybody into cardboard boxes and you're going to go work out in another area until they completely redo whatever. I think that you have some deep wisdom, if you're willing to share it, about how to continue to do all the things that you do, because you do have your corporate job. You have a beautiful family. You do have clients. You are doing nonprofit work. You are keeping all of these pieces going And I can only imagine that there are still rooms that have boxes in them.
Gosh, Sarah, wow. I'm just getting over my PTSD through the whole remodel, but no, I will tell you this. I've never taken on a project of this magnitude.
Mm.
And clearly that's why my little screen back here is here, because this room is still highly in renovation mode. But I think I was a little traumatized by the whole flooring throughout, a remodel of 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. Although now I'm so, I mean, my kitchen, I have like a 9-foot island. I'm so yes, it's a showstopper. It's beautiful. But of course I'll be working until I'm 90, but that's another story.
Yes.
I learned, okay, this is what happens to me. You know how people say you learn through your experiences,
Yes.
good or bad?
Yes.
I learn more about people through good and bad experiences, right?
Yes.
So I learned a lot about my own temperance and my own patience, or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about trust, but I also learned that at the end of the day, the problems that we faced with the remodel were first world problems.
Yes.
And I had to keep that in perspective. When there is no dishwasher for months, and children think that you cannot wash dishes then because there is no dishwasher. And I'm thinking, well, my sister and I were the dishwashers growing up.
Yes.
But it has been a challenging process. I'm not a designer, but I now, if any of you of Sarah's beautiful audience need any design assistance, I made all the design mistakes. I am happy to give you that, information free of charge, because I made a lot of design mistakes. And unfortunately, my contractor said, "Oh, we do these all the time," So at the end of the day, it's beautiful. There's still a lot of work to be done. I'm doing a lot of it myself. So this room, I'm actually this weekend going to be wallpapering and painting.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited about that. And maybe you'll have me back one day when I can actually show my room, show my office.
Yes. Yes.
So yes, there are some boxes still. There's a few boxes still, but we're getting there, Sarah. We're getting there.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. And you have been so upbeat through the entire process. I remember when they put the dishwasher in, and I'm not sure that it worked the first day that they put it in. And so you had the dishwasher, but you still didn't have a dishwasher. So I just appreciate your desire to look at things optimistically, and taking the opportunity to do that as well. So positive.
Well, one interesting thing that happened was the appliances are from a company I'd never heard of, right? And so the contractor, when we were having issues, he said, "Well, they won't even return my call." And of course I panicked, like, "Oh, I don't even know who these people are." Well, I ended up getting a hold of them. They have been so phenomenal that I had to write letters for I didn't have to. I chose to write letters to for two of their employees, that the company is a smaller company. They read the letter throughout their entire company.
Oh, that's so good.
And they called me to say, "Oh my gosh, did you write that letter for so-and-so?
Right.
You made her day." I said, "I made her day." She stopped me. I mean, she talked me off the ledge a couple of times, because I thought this is it. I'm doomed, right? I'm sunk. So I've met wonderful, wonderful people along this journey and through this process. And for me, it's all about the people. Always, always, always. So that's what I will always cherish.
There's such power in writing notes, thank you notes, those places where we are inspired, whether we choose to pick up a card and write it that way, a postcard, whether we choose to make a short video for somebody, whether we choose to text, whatever it happens to be. I know that when I was building my in-person Reiki business, that I chose to send flowers to somebody as a thank you because they'd purchased the largest package that I had. And so I call up this company, and I think it's the company that when Beth Meisner of BNI used to have huge events, I think this is the florist that she used. And I call them up, and they aren't really quite sure that they had that account, but they would love to help me. And then as we get further into it, I say, she says, how do you want to sign off on the card? And I said, I think I want to say something along the lines of, thank you with Reiki, or with love with Reiki, or something like that. And she stops right there and says, you do Reiki? And I said, yes. And she said, had this little conversation. I said, feel free to keep my number. If at any point that you decide that you want to reach out and we can have a conversation, that would be fine. Out of me ordering flowers for maybe $100 or so, I got, in the end, the largest group of people. The vast majority came out of that one person telling other people, who then told other people. And I was just saying thank you. That was my end goal, was just to say thank you to my friend for buying this large package, for this client buying this package. And so the power of the inspiration, when it shows up for us to do things, there's a reason why it's there. Yes, our moms were right, or whoever it was that was trying to teach us to say thank you. They were right about that, right? Okay, absolutely. I acknowledge that. But there's also this other side piece of feeling it and just knowing this is the moment to move forward. And I sent out one yesterday that just seemed to me a little bit quirky for who I am, the words that came out. And I looked at it and I thought, you know what? This is what Spirit has given me to say. I'm going to go ahead and send it. And it got past his assistant. He's a huge international speaker and trains on the international stage. And he got back to me today. I thought, if he gets back in a week, that's fine. If he doesn't get back, that's fine. I have done what I need to do, right? Today, he personally emailed me to say, thank you so much for that. And so just that space of listening, and for you to write those letters, it took you time. You're invested, right? But also you had seen where you had been, and you had seen how they had helped you, and where you were at this point in the difference, and their expertise in helping. That's just so good.
Well, I need to be better about that, Sarah. And I challenge myself, because it's easy to complain. It's easy to say, I want to speak to your manager or get somebody else on the phone, right? I've had those experiences, and I think I handled them very kindly. But I always feel that I want to challenge myself to be better about reaching out and saying thank you and writing those letters or giving that review, or all the things that can help someone and can help them with their business, their practice, their right. And to your point, it starts this revolution of just happy and joy and positivity and possibility, because the rest of it can keep us very bogged down. And there's a lot to consider in our world today, but there is so much that we have that to be grateful for, and to work within, and to celebrate if we so choose.
Right.
So.
When I go outside, I have the choice about what I'm going to focus on. It's the same thing in life. When I have the opportunity to read a magazine or choose a book, I get to choose what I'm going to focus on. And I think that space of choice is such a powerful one when we step into that and say, I am choosing this. I am choosing to invest 15 minutes reading this. And is it going to empower my life, or is it going to not? We get to decide what we want to invest in. And I just so appreciate your wisdom in this.
No, thank you. It's so true. Choice is such a gift. And right, I always say choose wisely, but don't always choose wisely, and I have to check myself
Mm,
quite a bit. And it's a slippery slope sometimes.
it can be. It
Yes,
can be.
yes.
Marie, for somebody who has been an entrepreneur, a leader in their space for a while, and they are just feeling like things are not as fulfilling as they used to be,
Mhm.
what advice would you give that person as they are considering and looking around their life, and it can be impacting their relationships, it can be impacting their health, it can be impacting, it's just not as fulfilling? What advice would you give, friend?
Uh, I would always say to look look back. Was there something that changed, or was it a circumstantial situation, or what was it that made it feel more fulfilling? So how do we recapture that? Or how do we find something not necessarily to replace it, but to reinvigorate it?
Mm,
Um, Sometimes we get into those slumps, and I always kind of joke and say, self-study, it ain't pretty sometimes, right? But sometimes we really need to like take a hard look and say, what has changed? What's changed about me? What's changed?
mhm.
Um, what's what are some of those triggers that are triggering me if they're able to be identified?
Yes.
Um, and sometimes it's just we need to regenerate, renew, restore, reinvigorate. And what is that, Sarah? There, I tell every one of my clients, go outside and walk barefoot in the grass every single day. And they look at me and they're saying, I'm paying you to tell me to go walk barefoot in my grass? What?
Yes.
But I
Yes.
seriously mean that.
Mhm.
Go ground yourself.
Yes.
Go take your shoes off. I mean, I have to think about doing that now that my dogs, have passed on, because before I would take the dogs out and I'd be
Easy.
like, oh, this was my time to walk in the grass with them and spend some time. But
Yes.
it is powerful.
Mhm.
Go do that every single day for like 10 minutes. And people look at me like I have two heads and they're thinking,
It's
what
so
is,
good.
but it is so good and it
So
is
good.
so valuable.
Yes.
So sometimes we just need to just ground ourselves and just reset,
Mhm.
um, and give a little thought to what was it, or what can I do differently, or maybe that was a season in my life,
Yes.
and maybe now this new season, let's see what new chapter we can open.
I like that.
Right? We're never too old to learn and to have that next chapter to open up, and we get to write it to a great extent.
We
So let's
absolutely
write
do.
a new chapter instead of, looking back and rereading the same thing over and over and over. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I would say.
Marie, as we're coming to a close in this particular conversation, because we will have more, is there something that you would like to reiterate, friend?
I would just like to say that I really do believe that every day each of us has the power to change somebody's life. Um, a great mentor of mine told the bucket story, which I know he didn't create the bucket story, but he told it to those of us working for him at the time. And he talked about, right, that we all have a bucket, and sometimes things happen in our lives and our buckets are really, really empty. Sometimes great things are going on and everything, we're in our groove and we're in this great place, and our buckets are overflowing. So it's really important to remember that we all have the ability to give a little something to somebody's bucket each day. And
Yes.
in turn, know that hopefully they're giving to our bucket as well. And so I think that you don't know what a simple smile can mean to someone.
Yes.
That's all it can, it could just be that. It doesn't have to be something on a grand scale.
Right.
It could just be a hello. It could be holding the door open for somebody at the bank, or, I mean, something simple, saying hello to somebody, asking about their day and really meaning it.
Yes.
And so I think it's a pretty simple thing to do. And I just want to thank you, especially Sarah, for filling my bucket, because when we speak, my bucket overflows, friend. And it just, yes,
Yes.
I can't thank you enough. You and Grace are
Mhm.
the biggest bucket fillers. And I love you both so much. And you inspire me every day.
Oh, thank you. And you are right about that space of filling people's buckets can absolutely be the thing that makes somebody at the end of the day go, oh, this is good. And I so appreciate this conversation, and we will have more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to our audience, we are just so grateful that you have chosen to listen all the way to the end. And for this space and time, for the tools that you have gotten, we desire for them to be ones that empower you, encourage you on your journey forward. And we thank you so much for being here and for being here with us at Simply Sarah. Till next time.